Hear that? That's the sound of a patient whose health data is protected from a cyber attack. And that's the sound of a financial system that's digitally secured from bad actors. Right now, there's an invisible war being fought on a digital battlefield that impacts what we do every day. That's why at Peraton, we do the can't be done to help protect the vital systems we rely on. Because if we don't, the alternative is unimaginable. Peraton.
You may know him as John Cross from the podcast From the After Movie Diner, or you may not know him at all. But now you can know him as Miscellaneous Plumbing Fixtures with the release of his new album, Catch Up or Don't, See If I Care. Available now on Bandcamp, iTunes, Amazon, SoundCloud, Google Play, Spotify, and wherever music is found. A full 16 new folk, blues, and rock tracks from this bearded singer-songwriter. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and at aftermoviediner.com. For links to the album and to learn more, go to miskplumbingfixtures.blogspot.com or miskplumbingfixtures.bandcamp.com.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Direct-to-Video Connoisseur. I am Matt, and as always, I'm joined by Jamie. Jamie, how are you?
I am ready to go. I've been podcasting at this point for 3 hours, and I'm ready to go for one more.
Whoa, you're like marathon podcast. It's like the dance marathons of the 20s. You're just...
Yeah, we just finished up the Horror 101 show that will be coming out for the Skeleton Crew, where we pretty much tackle horror from the beginning to the present. I mean, quick and dirty. You know, we don't get too crazy into it. It's just a run through, but it was a really fun show. So we finished that up just in time for me to jump over here and do this show.
Not bad. Yeah. Yep. You know, that could be kind of like a good thing for charity you could do, like 24-hour podcast. You know, try to donate money for a certain charity. See if you can podcast for 24 hours straight.
I have practically done that before. I've come pretty damn close. I think my record for one show recording, which the entire, obviously all of it didn't end up getting used in one episode, but there was one time when I recorded for 11 hours.
Wow.
That's the record that I've had. But I don't like to do that very often.
No.
It's a little rough on the voice.
Mm-hmm. I can imagine, because I have days when I teach 8 hours worth of classes, and when I get to that last 8th one, sometimes I'm like, and I mean, these are speaking lessons where, I guess in the same thing with you with the podcast where you're letting other people speak at times, but it gets you after a while. Now, I want to mention too, Jen and I were watching Amadeus, the director's cut, and yeah, well, so what happened was Jen wanted to watch Amadeus. She's seen it quite a bit. It's one of her favorite movies, and so we got it off of Amazon Prime, or Amazon download thing, and she's like, I've never seen the director's cut. I've always kind of avoided it because it's a 3-hour deal. And so as we're watching it, we're realizing that sometimes, things are edited for a reason. Things are cut out of a movie for a reason, and so...
Yeah, I just watched the director's cut of Aliens, and I can attest to that. Because it's 2 hours and 39 minutes, and there is definitely a reason that some of that stuff was cut.
Yeah. I mean, the director's cut always sounds like a great idea at the time. What's the director's true vision? But sometimes people need to rein that director in and say, come on. Let's cut a few things out here that just aren't working.
Overall, though, how is it though? I've never seen the director's cut of Amadeus. I do love Amadeus too.
Yeah, I think from Jen knows better than I do because I haven't seen the film in over 10 years. But I think Jen knows better than me. She's saying that a lot of these scenes that are extra just aren't adding anything that of value, and in some cases they're detracting things. There's one scene. Do you remember in Amadeus when Mozart's wife she goes to Soliari with his music to try to get him that gig tutoring the princess?
Yeah.
Well, what happens is there's an extra scene where Soliari tells her, if you want this job, you need to come see me on your own later on. And she shows up, she gets naked for him, and then he rings the bell for his assistant to show her out while she's half naked in that room. And so she goes home and she's crying. And it's really like, you're kind of like, well, what did we need any of that? I mean, I guess it shows...
It's compounding how much of an asshole he...
Right, I guess so. But Jen said what it does is it detracts from kind of the comic assholeness of him. There's those...
That's true.
Yeah. And that I guess in that way it detracted. I guess there was another thing too with the woman who sings the opera, the German opera. Soliari had a thing for her, and they go into more detail about that as well.
Okay, so not really missing much of anything. I'll just stick with the theatrical. A lot of times, what happens is you realize. Now, I am definitely one to come down on Hollywood when they do stupid shit to movies that the directors don't want them to do, and then you end up watching the director's cut and you're like, God, this was so much better, But a lot of times, what you discover is that there's a reason that the theatrical cut is the theatrical cut.
Right.
Another one that I don't really care for the director's cut is Blade Runner.
Yes, me too. I agree.
And you want to, like, you want to be like, I want to support this director's vision. I want to see it the way they intended for me to see it, and I want to love it. But then you just don't always.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember the first version of it that I saw was the director's cut. My friend showed it to me, and he had to go out of his way because he'd never seen the director's cut. He's like, no, I want you to see the original version. And I don't remember how he was able to find it. Like somebody had maybe taped it off of TV or something, just so I could compare the two.
Yeah, and then you ended up preferring the theatrical cut.
Exactly. Now, I've got quite a segue going on here because I've got cutting, right, with both this film. This film probably could have used a more director's cut. Maybe the whole thing could have been cut. And also, we're talking about hatchets here because we're watching Lizzie.
That's one of your more creative ones. I always love to see how the segue is going to work itself in, and that's a good one.
Thank you. Yeah, it was kind of a two-pronged one. So, should we just dive right into it? I mean, maybe we should go back to where we were last week, a week ago at this time, when I was going over some of the options for this week, and I said, oh, there's one called Lizzie with Gary Busey. It's based on the Lizzie Borden story, and...
Oh.
Yeah.
And I said, sold! Because I love the Lizzie Borden story.
So maybe you should start then, because... being someone who's familiar with the story more than I am, even though I'm from just near Massachusetts and near Fall River, even though you're more familiar with it, I mean, what did you think of what they did with it in this movie, or didn't do, or what,
Well, in order to really dig into what they did with it, as far as the story of Lizzie Borden is concerned, you'd have to really jump to the end, because the majority of this film has nothing to do with the Lizzie Borden story.
Right.
When we're watching it, numerous times Brian was like, because Lizzie Borden, like they would show, they kept showing that damn doll, and he is like, because everyone associates creepy dolls with Lizzie Borden.
Right.
You would have no idea that that's what you were watching. And then by the time they actually do broach the subject of the Lizzie Borden story at the end, they butcher it so much and go on this crazy tangent with this ridiculous theory that is so beyond what actually happened. It was just fiction. It was completely fictionalized. So I don't even know. I'm watching this going, do these people, do they know about the Lizzie Borden story?
No.
Are they attempting to do something so far removed from what actually happened so that people won't see what's coming? Is that I don't understand their motivation here.
Yeah, and it was weird too because they vaguely touched on certain theories, like the idea that Lizzie Borden was a lesbian. Um, and I thought where they were going, and I don't know if you thought the same thing, that maybe where they were going was that when Gary Busey, who Gary Busey is pretty good as even though he's only in it at the very end of the film, as what is it?
Andrew Borden.
Andrew
Yeah.
Borden. I was going to call him Andrew Borden. But the idea is that he rapes the maid, Bridget.
Bridget slash Maggie.
Slash Maggie, right? Exactly.
Which, if you know the Lizzie Borden story, you know that her real name was Bridget, but the reason that the family called her Maggie was because the previous maid that they had, her name was Maggie, and they were so lazy that they couldn't even be bothered to learn, or at least Abby Borden was so lazy that she couldn't be bothered to learn the new girl's name.
That's exactly.
So she kept
yeah.
calling her Maggie, which is just, that's really sad. So if you know that that's a fact,
Right.
and then when you watch their version of what happened, there's no way you can even think that it was remotely possible.
Yeah.
Because the Abby Borden in this film is, trying to protect Bridget, and I mean, she's just a completely different person from who she was in real life. And they paint Andrew Borden as this vicious, rapist, which has never been a thing. I don't know. I don't know where they got that.
Yeah. I mean, all of that was just weird. Yeah, there was and of course too, we never see. They completely they forget about the fact that the brother-in-law was in town. For that situation, but also, yeah, like they kind of mention that Lizzie may have been gay, may have been a lesbian, but they don't really talk about that. They just kind of gloss over it. But then a major part of the film, or of the story, the Lizzie Borden story, that they completely just, I don't know what they did with it. It was the idea that Lizzie didn't get along well with her stepmother, Abby.
Mm-hmm.
The idea that if Andrew Borden killed his wife, Abby, and then Lizzie saw that, it would exact revenge on him for that, just sounds crazy. That would be her motive for killing him.
It does, because there is a pervasive theory that runs that Lizzie and Andrew may have had some sort of illicit affair, or some kind of, that there was something not quite right about their relationship as far as daughters and fathers are concerned. She was very close to her father.
Mm-hmm.
She wore a ring that he gave her, and they were very close. And so she actually I think that's part of the reason that she didn't get along with Abby, was because she was as close to her father as she was. So their version of it is basically the exact opposite of...
Yeah.
They pretty much took everything that everyone knows about the Lizzie Borden story and flipped it on its head.
Yeah.
And attempted to create something that, while I think what they were going for was something innovative and like, oh, I've never looked at it from that way before. But what ended up happening is that it just comes off ludicrous because it's so completely unbelievable.
Yeah. And so we get, this is what the last 15 minutes of the film is this, right?
Mm-hmm. Roughly.
And then
15 maybe.
Yeah, and I was going to say, now, tell me you didn't know we were in for it when the beginning of the film starts with a really bad poem.
Oh, God. Thank you for that. I mean,
Yeah.
That was so bad. It was like, I don't know, it was like it was written by a fifth grader.
Yeah.
Like it was really not, they didn't even try.
No.
And I think they were trying to be clever, but it just comes off.
Oh,
tacky.
no, it's just that bad. Oh, it was
Then
that
they
bad.
had the horrible singing of the Lizzie Borden song, which
Yes.
I don't know what the hell tune they were using, but that's not a tune you've ever heard attached to those lyrics ever.
Yes.
So in the very first minute of the film, we already know that this is not a film that we want to continue to watch.
No.
Matter of fact, we weren't that far into it when Brian was begging me to turn it off.
Yeah.
He's like, "Can you do a fuck this movie on this show? Can we just stop it right now? Can we just stop this movie?" And I'm like, "No, I'm curious to see." I was actually curious to see what they would do. I wanted to see how it would end.
I was too. I wanted to know. I despite the fact that the poem told me that this was not going to go well. I had my seatbelt on. If I'd had some whiskey nearby, I probably would have hit a shot at least because I knew it was buckle up time. But like you, I wanted to know how this was going to go. What was going to happen. And like you said with the old doll thing, like that is just how many times do we see old dolls used to create scary atmosphere?
Yeah, I think people think old doll equals scary. Well, not all the time. Sometimes old doll just equals stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, by the time we get to the end, we have this whole epilogue kind of thing with her, because we keep throughout the film, she's having these nightmares and these visions, and we keep having these visions of a little girl who we assume is her, as a little girl. I'm not completely sold on what the hell we were supposed to be. I mean, I get how apparently if you live in this house, the Lizzie Borden, the spirit of Lizzie Borden is pervasive and kind of controls people, but I'm not really sure what seeing the little girl on the tricycle time after time after time was supposed to tell us. I just didn't get that.
Yeah, I didn't get that. The actress overall, like I thought, like there's a scene where the cable guy shows up,
Oh my
and
God.
she's screaming, "Who is it?" This really, I mean, her,
Who is it?
exactly. Yes. Like that didn't work. When she was having bad memories, she looked like she was about to sneeze. Like she squinted and her nose kind of went up.
She was a terrible
Yeah.
actress. There's no way around that. I mean, I hate to pan people. On the whole, I don't want to go, because I mean, I'm not an actress, and there's a reason for that. But it wasn't good. I'm wondering how
Yeah.
this role.
Yeah. It wasn't in her wheelhouse. This was not,
But everything felt so disingenuine. You've got the scene where she and her neighbor are attempting to chop open the little door.
What was that?
with the axe.
Yes, I put
And
that.
I'm like, first of all, who swings an axe like that? No one, because you can't hit shit if you swing it like that. Second of all, they're barely tapping it. And I said, well, clearly the reason for that is that the person who is making this movie lives in that house, and it's a rental property, and they don't want to lose their they
Right.
don't want to lose their deposit, so they're not going to do any real damage to this house. And then the fake doctor's office where Corbin Burnson was her psychiatrist, and that falls apart. There are several scenes where you can see like the curtains behind his bed.
Yes.
Everything looks slapped together and totally fake. And it's clear that it's all filmed in the same place. It's just
Yes.
another room of the same house. And let me make it clear, I don't have an issue with low budget. I mean, that's mainly what we talk about here.
Right.
I don't have an issue with a film being low budget, but there's a big difference between a film having a low budget and being cheap. And this film is just cheap. And
Well,
it comes off that way.
Yeah, I mean, you brought up Corbin Burnson. They probably could only afford so much time with him, so we get flashback scenes where he's repeating the same thing. Sometimes you wonder too how many of the scenes, like they do some good overheads, and so you can see that she's in the different outfits that she wore with each visit. But sometimes you wonder if those are, Corbin Burnson scenes are with her in those ones, or if they've just been added in there.
Oh, and I'm sure of that. I am right on board with you there. And I know that if he was in those scenes, then she just ran out of the room, changed clothes real quick, came back.
Mm-hmm.
There was one scene where her hair was it was in a ponytail, but you could tell that it had originally been done for another scene, and they
Yes.
just slapped it in a ponytail so that it would look as if it was a different time.
Mm-hmm.
But you could tell by the way it was done that was it was done like right then.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very transparent. They didn't try very hard, and that to me is one of the biggest mistakes you can make in filmmaking, is that you can have a low budget, but you can still have a good film.
Yeah.
You have to really care about it, and you have to try. I don't think the writers cared about this. I said during the time when that ridiculous cable man was there,
Yes.
I'm like, did a writer actually write this dialogue, or are these people ad-libbing this shit? Because if a writer sat down and wrote this dialogue and thought, hey, this sounds really good, we'll put this in the movie, something is wrong with A, the writer, and B, the person who said, yeah, let's put this in the movie.
Yeah.
Because it was beyond ridiculous. I mean, and what the hell time period was this supposed to be anyway, that she's arguing with her boyfriend that the cable guy doesn't know anything about the internet connection?
Well, I was going to ask that too, because there's one outfit that she wears with Corbin Burnson that looks like it's a modern 2012 outfit. It's kind of like the leggings and the boots that you see a lot of women wear today. But all the other outfits definitely seemed like late 90s, early 2000s.
Of course, they had the older TV.
I was going to say, yeah.
But I was looking at the cell phones, and I was trying to determine whether or
Flip
not
phones.
yeah, that's true. So maybe it was supposed to be, which doesn't make any sense. Why make a period piece that goes back to the 90s? Who cares? What's the point of that? I mean, when it doesn't matter. I mean, if you're talking about a murder that took place in 1892,
Right.
and the spirit of that murderer or whatever is supposed to have an effect on people present day, what difference does it make unless it was supposed to be 1992 and it was exactly 100 years later? Well, if that's the case, then you're going to say it.
Yeah.
And that was never said.
No.
So, or at least that I saw. So I didn't really get that. I was really confused about the time period. I was really confused about the fact, and of course, if it was 1992, then the cable guy wouldn't know anything about the internet connection.
Exactly, yes.
So it just, so it obviously wasn't 1992.
No.
That's clear. So beyond that, then I don't get why it wasn't present day. If it wasn't. If it was, then where has she been living all this time that she's going to say the cable man doesn't know anything about the internet connection?
Right.
And then he's going to tell her, don't get it, don't get the internet, because you know why he wants it. He wants fresh pussy. Or
Yes,
what is he
exactly.
saying? It was ridiculous. He wants, you were like cold meat to him. He doesn't want the cold meat. He wants to look up new hot chicks.
Oh,
what
yeah.
are you talking about?
Well, did you notice he told her not to have a cow at one point? He said, don't have a cow.
I actually did not catch that.
Yes, I
wish I had.
Yes, and I remember when I was I had a job working for a U.S. Visa Center, scanning documents, and our manager said that another manager would have a cow if we didn't do this or that, and I had two coworkers from the Dominican Republic, and they were like, "What does have a cow mean?" They're asking me after, and I'm trying to explain that it's an outdated expression used by Bart Simpson on The Simpsons. They knew who the Simpsons were because the show has outlasted the phrase that they created, from however long ago. But when I heard it in this, I was just like, oh my lord, yeah. The whole thing was just, yeah.
It could be called Fail the Movie, like I said before we started the show.
Yes.
It could also be called Filler the Movie,
Filler.
because we got those riveting scenes of her boyfriend, putting on his clothes before work, making coffee before work.
Oh, the electric guitar.
All of these things that are not at all necessary, and it's just they just want to stretch the runtime. That's what we have.
Yeah, I was going to say, that coffee-making scene with the electric guitar was maybe the best scene in the film for me. I loved that. That was like, and he's like, putting the filter in, putting the water into the thing, I like that. There was another scene where she was looking in the mirror early in the film when she had cut her finger, and then I guess she imagined she had blood all over her. And I remember she was like looking at herself in the mirror, and the drums were from that Phil Collins song, the ones like, take me home, 'cause I don't remember, it was like, do-do-do-doom, do-doom. And, yeah.
Everyone kicks in on that drum solo.
Yeah.
When that drum kicks in, everyone's doing it. Every time I hear that song in the car, I'm immediately drumming along with it.
Yeah, it was just, I was like, whoa, Phil Collins drumming there. That's not bad. So, like music-wise, I was kind of digging some of this, but overall, I mean, some of the things I saw, you're talking about the place they lived in. I saw a number 10 can opener. I don't know if you ever worked in a kitchen before and had to use a number 10 can opener.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that thing on the edge of the counter there, and I thought, where are they filming this at? Is it like some kind of mansion that doubles as a B&B or something like that?
Like a sorority house.
Yeah.
Or they have that sign on the wall that farm fresh eggs 25 cents a dozen, and it's not decorative, it's just a black sign that says, and I'm like, man, I'm loving that sign, I want that for my kitchen. And when I said that, Brian was like, I was just about to say, who in the hell saw that sign and said, I have got to have that for my kitchen?
Yes.
Because there's nothing decorative or special about it. It's the only thing hanging in that kitchen. So it just doesn't make any sense. But like I said, everything seems fake. Seems, the house seems fake. The relationship seemed fake. I made a statement that I don't believe their relationship together for 1 second.
No.
First of all, I don't know any man who's going to go outside, who's going to go to work, which, by the way, his work was bullshit, too. That was in somebody's garage.
Yes.
Brian pointed out the sounds. He's like, don't you hear other people working? That's authentic.
Yes. Yes. Oh my. Yes.
But, I mean,
know.
that was bullshit. And then you've got... and I don't know any man who's going to go and work where he said he was working outside, I don't know, like pouring concrete or something, I don't know, all day, and then come home and make her dinner when she's been sitting on her ass. Oh, her big thing for that day was she took a long nap.
Yes.
And she's been bugging him about the wine that she needs to drink because she's clearly an alcoholic. So I like, what guy is going to do that? What guy's going to go, who? I mean, any man, male or female. I'm fucking not going out and working my ass off all day and then coming home and making dinner for a person who has done nothing but take a long nap.
Well, not only that, but how awake was he when he was watching the movie? There's no way that you work all day pouring concrete and then you sit down and watch a movie and you're up for that whole thing after drinking wine as well. I mean...
Yeah, and then that was another beautiful thing is right when they started the movie, she's like, hurry up, I don't want to watch it by myself. And then he comes walking in with the plates of dinner that he just made. I'm like, yeah, hurry up and bring me the food that you just made for me after you worked all day. Come on. I don't buy it for a second. Not a second.
Yeah, I mean,
that may be nitpicking, but to me it's just another example of how authentic this film is not.
Yeah, well, I was going to say about her, I was trying to figure out how to place her, because she seemed like, I'm trying to think, like, she was a cross between, I had Elizabeth Berkley, Elizabeth Olsen, and then maybe a dash of Greg Evigan.
I did not see that coming, that's awesome.
I was trying to figure out who she was, and I was like, okay, I don't even know if she'd been in anything before.
I don't recall ever having seen her before, but it's not surprising because she can't act.
No. Well, I mean, yeah, I was trying to think of the different scenes where I had trouble with. One was the cable guy. She's in her underwear, talking to a strange man who just showed up, and she's just sitting on the couch going, so have you been doing this for a long time?
Yeah. After he has been insulting, I mean, from the time he got in the door, they were arguing, and then he called her stupid. Of course, that was a little bit later, but even after he called her stupid, I mean, in several different ways, you're sexy, but you're stupid, you're sexy because you're stupid. I don't even know. But after all of that, then she was still having conversations with him when they went outside to look at the door as far as the connection goes, and then he makes some other sexist remark, oh, let the man get in here and do this. I'm like, why is this man still on your property?
Well,
he would have gone from my house a fucking long time ago.
Yeah, I mean, maybe she wanted the cable that badly, but I don't know.
But not internet, because the cable man doesn't know anything about internet.
Exactly. I know. And then what was it? They needed to get some kind of a thing. What was it? They needed to get in there and use something in the panel needed to be connected, which of course led us to, as you mentioned, probably one of the worst scenes in movie history. At least one of the longest scenes in movie history, that panel opening scene where it takes them forever just to know to use the hatchet blade to try to even pry the thing open.
Yeah, and they're attempting to pull it off like it pulls forward when there is clearly a hinge on the left side of that door. And then you see them trying to pry it on the side. I'm like, they stick the hatchet right above the hinge to try to pry it up. I'm like, don't you see that hinge right there? How moronic are you people?
Yeah, oh my god, I know that too. Oh man, the whole thing. It was just like, I wish I was trying to think because it was just like the whole thing was just, how do I want to say it? It was all, yeah, it was just,
fail. It was all
that's the word. It was all fail. It was just, like, failtastic? Is that the word I want? You called it fail the movie? Fail-a-rrific? I mean, it was every kind of fail you could imagine if you put them all together in one thing. It was, I mean, I sauteed in wrong sauce I think is too generous, especially for that scene where they're like trying to hit the door and they just kind of scratch it a little bit and then they expect to be able to open it after that.
Oh my god. It was insulting too. I mean, I think that's probably why I have such a dislike for it, is that they tried so little that it's actually insulting
Yeah.
that they expect us to buy any of this.
Right. Yeah. And so what we get here is we get a box that tells us. Let me look at the cover again while I've got it up here. Let me just open it here. It's probably going to freeze Skype and all of that on my computer. But so it tells us that it's got Don Swayze, Corbin Burnson, and Gary Busey, who total in the film probably spend about 10 minutes total in the film altogether. And of course,
I was going to say that's all of them put together, right?
right, exactly, exactly. I mean, Don Swayze, I have never understood the concept of Don Swayze, other than the fact that you just put him on the name and people think, oh, he's Patrick Swayze's brother. But he's never worked for me. I was just curious to see what he was going to be in. I mean, I thought.
You ever look at him and think that his face has way too much flesh on it, or not even flesh like it's fat, but skin?
Yeah.
Like there's just too much skin on his face.
Yeah, I thought he's kind of. I hate to be too insulting, but he kind of looks rat-like, perhaps. I don't know if that.
Yeah. Oh, I agree with that.
Yeah. So, I mean, Busey. I loved Busey, even though he was nowhere near what Andrew Borden is supposed to be. I loved seeing him in there. As whatever he was supposed to be, doing it exactly. Though when he has to kill Abby Borden with a hatchet, I don't know what that was either. That was just like lightly tapping her with the hatchet, and blood's going everywhere.
Right. Another thing about the film that felt completely inauthentic. I'm like, you can't tell me that you can't put something down here that he actually hit, and hit it and make it look real, because it wasn't even on camera. All you saw was him swinging. You never actually saw what he was hitting.
Right.
So make it real. You have every opportunity to make it realistic, and you didn't even try.
Yeah.
It's like they had, I don't know, what they have Grandma's China down there. They're like, don't swing really hard. We can't afford to break it.
Yes. And I mean, an axe murder is the best. Like, for me, the axe murder is one of the easiest ones to make gruesome in a film, because you need to get that thud of axe getting into flesh and bone. You just have that thud go off screen there, and maybe show the person hitting something. It doesn't take much to really make that just nasty and gruesome. And I mean, I think that's part of what makes the Lizzie Borden case so scary, because in the trial they brought the skulls out that had been damaged, that had been destroyed by Lizzie Borden, so you can really see the kind of damage a hatchet does. I don't know, that whole thing to me was just like, whoo, boy, and yet this movie didn't seem to do any of that. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't either. And how hard is it to show a body that has been mutilated by a hatchet? That's like special effects 101.
Yes.
It's not difficult to do, yet they didn't utilize any of the potential that they could have for this film. But they did spend a lot of time making the ghostly Lizzie Borden, which was ridiculous.
Yes. Oh, man. And they did that horrible effect where the face is shaking all over the place when they look in the mirror.
Oh, my God. Yeah, because everyone hasn't done that 150 times. I'm like, that wasn't interesting the first time I saw it. It's not going to be interesting several years later when everyone and their brother has already done it.
No. And I mean, we talked about the writing. I mean, the writing had like those anyways that you see. People say, I was going to go to the store anyway. Things like that look great when you write them down, but if you don't proofread, go through and look at those things and see how unnatural they sound, and just leave them in, they sound horrible in a film, and they just kind of like almost like grate. They're so bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, just pretty much like the entire film.
Yes. So one thing I was thinking, because this film does, the Lizzie Borden story, I don't know, maybe we could talk about that a little bit, because the film is just so bad. But of course, it would happen in Fall River, Mass. So you could imagine somebody from Massachusetts, like maybe my cousin Bobby from Malden, saying, like, oh, Lizzie Borden, yeah, that's one of the most famous stories in Boston history. Massachusetts, one of the most famous crimes ever committed. Well, other than the Charles Stewart case, which, if you remember the Charles Stewart case, right, that was a really bad one back there in the 90s. But otherwise, I think that the Lizzie Borden one is so scary, because she just like used that hatchet and she was just like killing everybody. And I don't know if you ever been to Fall River. Like, they're all so stuck up over there anyway, so you don't want to deal with any of them.
Oh, that reminds me. That was another thing. Is she was talking about the address,
Yes.
and she's like 92 South. She's like, what do you mean? When she was doing that really bad one-sided phone call with 911. And she's like, what do you mean it doesn't exist? What? Because, and I'm thinking, yeah, the address does still exist because it's a fucking B&B now.
Yes, exactly.
The house is still there. It's a bed and breakfast. So
Yeah.
what are you talking about?
Which all you need to do is go on Wikipedia and you find that out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's another thing I hate. I hate bad one-sided phone calls.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about some actors who they forget how to have a phone call. Like, it's just they pick up the phone and then all logic just flies out the window, and it's just.
Yeah. Just go get a Bob Newhart stand-up tape. He'll show you how to do a one-sided phone conversation. He was the master. God. Well, one thing I was thinking about with this case, with this, because we think of the case of Lizzie Borden, it was so, at the time it was such a big thing. You wonder if maybe like in 2094, if people are going to do like O.J. Simpson type things, like ghostly things with like a ghostly O.J. Simpson or something. Like, do you think at some of those cases, like we could
have a ghostly Bronco driving down the street?
Yes. I mean, I think Lizzie Borden is a special case that I think, like, I don't know if any of the more recent big trials, like the Lindbergh.
I agree with that. It is, well, that and Lizzie Borden and Jack the Ripper.
Yes.
Are two cases that I don't think we'll ever see anything like quite again. Both of those really, because of the vast amount of mystery that's involved around both of them, and the fact that they're so far gone that there's no way we'll ever really know for sure. People are uncovering things all the time and new theories about Jack the Ripper and Lizzie Borden. But there's really no way that we'll ever know completely for sure, because everything is so far gone and so we're so far removed from it that they will forever live in history with that huge amount of mystery attached to it, which is part of their intrigue.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the thing with O.J. The Lindbergh trial, of course. I think maybe in the case of the Lindbergh trial, because it's a baby that died, it's hard to do anything with that one. But with O.J., even though he was acquitted, there's no mystery there. We know he committed the murders. I was trying to think, like, if like somebody living in Brentwood or something like that, and they have a pool boy or something like Kato Kalin. I don't know how the sister comes out, and Sleep Pool Boy that comes out, and
Yeah, what's interesting is that Lizzie Borden is one of my favorite cases throughout history, and I love true crime and serial killers and things like that. And Lizzie Borden is a case that I have been reading up everything I could ever get my hands on since I was a little kid. And in elementary school, I was interested in this case and Jack the Ripper. And so last week when you said there's Lizzie and I said sold, it was because I had seen it on Netflix. I knew that it existed, and I'd always wanted to watch it because I'm interested in the case, and I just hadn't gotten around to it. So I was really excited to watch this. And then I watch it, and I'm like, wow. Just wow.
Yeah.
I think the smart thing for them to do would have been to completely just trash the whole Lizzie Borden idea. If you want to have a film about a house where a killer lived and now they're sort of possessing the people that move into it and that sort of thing. I mean, it has been done, but it's still a usable idea, and it could be a really good idea. What makes this film as bad as it is how poorly they treat the actual story. So I think if they had taken that part out, maybe I wouldn't dislike it as much as I do. It's still a cheap film. It's still badly acted. It's still poorly made. But at least I wouldn't be sitting there grinding my teeth over the story, which is like, because sometimes a really good story can cover a myriad of sins.
Yes.
And can save a film beyond bad acting and being cheaply made, if it's good enough. But they didn't have anything here. I mean, they didn't have anything in their favor.
Well, what if instead of doing Lizzie Borden, if they had done a a murder that happened in the late 19th century that was similar to Lizzie Borden's, but didn't call it that, right? If they had created new characters, but they were roughly based on the same idea. And so we go into it, and we're not going, this is a Lizzie Borden story. We're going into it going like, oh, this is something similar to Lizzie Borden. I kind of like that they did something similar. And that gives them more license to do whatever they want, too.
Of course, it does. And then you're not going to have people who are really familiar with the case. Again, speaking of myself here, going in and knowing immediately the things that are just don't sit right. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, you can just start picking them off, the things that absolutely don't sit right. And I think if you remove that, then I'm not so busy doing that. I'm not so busy hating on the film for what it's doing wrong. Instead, I'm maybe giving them a little credit for going, oh, I see what they did here. You know, they tried to make it similar to Lizzie Borden just as a little nod. Mm-hmm. And that would have been better. That would have been like, oh, I get what you're doing, you know, but outright doing it and then doing it completely wrong, that's bad. That's really bad.
Yeah, I mean, this was kind of a Lizzie Borden bait and switch, we could say.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah,
and it didn't even have a Farkas fracas.
Well, so I was gonna say no Farkas fracas, which did you notice I hashtag that when I posted that?
I did.
Yes, I had to, and it got a few retweets. It'd be nice to get Farkas fracas, you know, trending on Twitter. But you know, I was thinking about like because you think about like Gary Busey obviously was something of a bait and switch in this. I always have what on the blog I've always had what I call the abusive meter for how good or bad Gary Busey is in the film. And I think going into the last 20 minutes, I had it as like barely a 1 in the abusive meter. But then he kind of recovers it and maybe gets it up to a 3 or 4. But, you know, if you make this a new story, if you make it something loosely based on Lizzie Borden, but you can allow Gary Busey to be who he was in this, which was nothing like the Andrew Borden that we know existed at the time, you know, you can kind of give him more license, and we don't feel so bad. We don't feel so like, what the hell was that we just watched there? We could be more like, oh, he's just some crazy southern rich guy that is raping his maid and killing his second wife. Mm-hmm.
Which at that point I could have been loving his performance as a nut job, which nobody pulls off as well as Gary Busey. I could have been just rolling around for his love for his performance rather than sitting there going, what in the hell are they doing? This didn't happen, which is what I did.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you know, Andrew Borden, I don't know as much about the case. I've kind of just, but even the little bit I knew that things were not working at the end there. But, you know, Andrew Borden is that New England Puritan type, especially late 19th century. I mean, he had the whole thing down, from trying to keep them in a middle to lower class existence despite having a lot of money. Living that very austere lifestyle. I mean, he had it to a T. And if he found out that his daughter was a lesbian, he probably would have shunned her. He probably would have been trying to sweep it under the rug or done things to upset her that may have caused her to do something. You never know. But, the character that Gary Busey was not that at all. And like you said, if they had just made it new people, we would have been like, hey, all right, we'll go with Gary Busey there.
Yep, sorry, I lost you there for a second. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So basically, they just fucked up all around.
they just killed it.
That's what they did.
Yes. So, I mean, this one, I think, in the past, we have encountered things like this and said, like, you might be able to find a way to have some fun with it or something. But I think this one is an out-and-out avoid. Maybe not.
Yes.
Yeah.
If I had been involved in this film, I wouldn't want to watch it.
I mean,
I'm looking at Corbin Burnson. I'm looking at Gary Busey, and I'm going, what the hell are you guys doing?
Yeah, especially Corbin.
Come on. I mean, you're slumming it big time. Like, I realized that Gary Busey had been reduced to reality shows. Mm-hmm. I saw those. I know that. But at some point, I just have to believe that they can get better work than this. I mean, they've both had far more illustrious careers than this. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, this, you think of Gary Busey, I think of things like Silver Bullet.
Yeah.
In which I love him in. Mm-hmm. You think of Corbin Burnson, he had that long career in L.A. Law.
Yeah.
And then, of course, he did, like, The Dentist and stuff. But So he's been in horror movies and in bad horror movies for quite a while. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but I could draw the line somewhere.
Yeah, I mean,
was this a personal favor?
yeah, I mean, because how do you look at this script? And I mean, his Corbin Burnson's character, for example, looking at the script, I mean, he's telling her to take take meds, and he's just doing these vague things like, well, this med is stronger than the last one, but don't take it with alcohol because it will double its effects. Like, what antidepressant is going to do that? Like, I don't even know what he's prescribing her.
No, I don't either. That's exactly what I was saying. Because before he even had that conversation with her, I was talking about the fact that she was using alcohol and then complaining that her medicine wasn't working.
Yes.
I'm like, well, it kind of makes sense because you're not supposed to drink alcohol if you're taking the medications. It will completely counter the effects.
Yeah.
And then he goes on and talks about one that it amplifies the effects. And I'm like, what the hell medicine is he talking about?
Yeah, that was just...
I don't know.
Yeah, it was, and I mean, like you said about the relationship with the boyfriend being completely forced. I mean, the boyfriend pulls one of the worst pranks in the history of pranks when he looks like he's a masked intruder and breaks into the house. He's got his girlfriend who is on edge and is seeing a therapist for anxiety, for repressed memories. She needs to take a lot of antidepressants. He knows this. And he's still going to pretend to be a masked intruder that's attacking her. Worst prank in the history of pranks, I would say.
Yeah, that was bad. And then he's surprised when she's upset by it. In which I'm thinking, well, this woman is clearly an unbalanced bitch to begin with. So why are you surprised that she's upset by this? I mean, I didn't even like her character.
No.
I did not like... I did not like her character because she took naps all day while her boyfriend was out working and then expected him to bring her wine and make her dinner. Oh. I did not like her character because she got so... I mean, he couldn't do anything without her getting pissy and bitchy with him. Like, I understand that she was upset when he didn't call and he was going to be out until 9 o'clock at night. That makes sense. But not because she was railing at him because he'd been drinking.
Yeah.
Well, that's all you do. So what exactly are you complaining about?
Yeah.
So I had no sympathy for her character because I didn't like her.
Yeah, and her interactions with Corbin Burnson, like trying to tell him about psychology, it's like, why are you seeing him if you know what I mean? Like I can understand if like if he was telling her now granted, some of his advice was pretty bad. Like, go live in the house where your family was murdered in. So you can bring up some repressed memories. Like, that already is a bad idea. But I guess my thinking is that, like, if you're, I don't know. I mean, I guess all she was doing was staying with him because he was giving her meds. I mean, I don't know what it was, but it was like, stop, I don't, yeah, like the whole thing. But she was, like, trying to tell him, like, oh, you don't know anything about psychology. Psychologists do this, that all the time. I'm telling you this, that,
Yeah, and he's all, if you can't face your demons, then we can't continue to see each other.
Right.
Because basically if she can't, then what's the point of seeing him, And then she's like, what, you're not going to see me anymore because I can't face my childhood? I'm like, yeah, well, kind of, that's what...
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think? I mean, you think going to a psychiatrist consists of you going there, complaining about your nightmares or whatever, and him dosing you so you don't have them anymore, so you can then go home continue to do nothing else and drink wine?
Yeah.
And she mentioned tutoring.
Yes.
What is she tutoring? What does she do? I never understood what her whole job was, or that she didn't have.
Yeah, and I didn't get that either. Like, they mentioned the tutoring, and then she never does it.
Yeah, never once does it come up again after she tells him, I'm going to be tutoring next week, and there'll be a little bit of money coming in.
Yeah.
I think she was just trying to deflect from the fact that she'd taken a nap that day.
Yeah, well, and what kind of money problems did they have, considering he was driving a Land Rover?
Yeah.
I don't know, I mean, and I mean, his hair looked like salon styled. If you're a guy working construction and your hair is salon styled, I got to say you got money coming from somewhere that you know. This movie, I'm trying to think. Like, I still like Ambushed. I have a special place in my heart for Ambushed as the worst we've reviewed on here, but this has got to be right there.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
It's definitely right there.
Yeah.
Actually, I might even say this is the worst film we have ever reviewed, at least from my point of view.
Yeah.
And part of that is because I do have such a great appreciation for the story that they claim that they based this on.
Yeah. And that they
So
butchered.
I'm like personally offended
Yeah.
that they had the nerve to do that.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I was trying to think of some other stuff that the film had that was bad. Perfunctory shower scene. Got to have the shower scene. Perfunctory love scene. Again, I mean, all of these things. I mean, and when I say perfunctory, I mean the shower scene. What, she cut herself while she was shaving her legs or something like that?
Yeah, it looked like Brian was like, "Whoa, did you hit an artery?"
Yes, I know. I mean, why do what was that doing? And like Brian said, they didn't show anything. Well, yeah, it was just, yeah, it was like, it's like they felt like you have to. It was like they were ticking off all the boxes. Okay, shower scene, check. Love scene, check. Boyfriend plays really bad prank, check. Creepy cable guy, check.
Creepy neighbor who just shows up in your bedroom standing over your bed with a hatchet in her hand, because that's perfectly normal.
Yeah.
And staring at you creepily while you sleep.
Yes, yeah. Yeah. And again, dressed like she was from 1999 or 2000 in 2012. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't know. And so I didn't get either. One thing I didn't get either about the story, even though I shouldn't be trying to make sense of anything, but that character was supposed to, right, exactly. That neighbor character was supposed to be Maggie or Bridget.
Right.
And so how did she end up getting killed if she wasn't really real? Or was she real? Like, what was going on with her?
One second we see her, she's a normal person. Next second we see her, she's wearing this maid costume. And I was like, was she always wearing that maid costume? And Brian was like, no. And I'm like, okay, just making sure I didn't miss it. And that's actually when I caught on to who she was.
Right.
Because when she came over to the house and she had that ridiculous bun on her head, and then she was wearing the maid costume, and she started talking about Andrew, I was like, oh, she's that Maggie.
She's
talking about Andrew Borden, which if you didn't know the story, which is kind of interesting because from the way that they make this film, I believe they're counting on people to not know the story.
Yes.
But then you wouldn't know who she was unless you knew the story at that point. So, yeah, it's very confusing.
Yeah, well, I think part of the reason why I didn't pick up on it right away was that her accent, I don't know if she was from Canada or something, but when she said her name, she would say Meggie instead of Maggie. And I was like, Meggie. I knew she was saying Maggie. Right, I knew she was saying Maggie, but I was just, in my head, I was just laughing at the fact that she was saying Meggie.
Yeah, really what they should have done is made her Irish because Maggie was Irish.
Yes.
Or Bridget was Irish. So if you want it to be authentic, if you want us to believe that's who it is, give her an Irish accent, and then people would have picked up on it a lot sooner.
We would have picked it. We'd be like, oh, I'm using a hatchet to... Oh, my God, I can't do the accent now. I can only say Irish with an Irish accent. Oh, come on now. We're going to use the hatchet. Yeah, I'm doing bad on my accents tonight. I think like probably the only one I can do is probably the Australian one.
Well, you can always do that. That's like your go-to.
Yeah, Lizzie Borden. Oh yes, Lizzie Borden. Yeah, because even Lizzie Borden doesn't give me anything to work with. I don't. I remember I met this Irish guy on the bus one time. We was talking to everybody on the bus, but he was telling this story about how he got kicked out of a Catholic school, and he was telling, he's like, that's how he ended up in America, because he couldn't stay in Ireland anymore because he couldn't go to school. And he's like, oh yeah, they caught me in one of the rooms with another woman or another girl, and he's like, I said to her, he said to her, sister, I promise we were just practicing the rosary. We weren't doing anything else. And like the whole bus just erupted. We were just like, the idea of him. Oh, sister, we're practicing the rosary, Oh, man. Yeah, I think the movie has sapped my ability to even try accents. Like I've just, I think it's the whole thing. It's bad tonight.
Yeah, well, that you just summed it up. Bad.
Now, I did have one question though, based on this another film we saw before, The Sacrament, right? Ty West. Now, that was one that kind of like ripped a whole story and acted like they weren't ripping it.
Yes.
So, I mean, which is a more egregious offense, do you think? Is it this one or that one?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. Because they both piss me off.
Right.
I think probably I'm angrier about the sacrament. Because here, anyone who knows the story, I mean, they flat out say Lizzie Borden. And so you just, when you're watching it, you realize they just are bad filmmakers. This is just a shitty idea. But with the sacrament, there's absolutely no indication that it's a real story, unless you're familiar with it, which apparently a lot of people were not, is what I discovered when that movie came out. So I think here, at least, they're being honest in their stupidity. I don't know. They're both bad ideas.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's a lot of theories about what happened with the Lizzie Borden case, but was there ever a theory that Andrew Borden raped Maggie?
Not that I have ever come across.
No.
If it's out there, no, I don't see how. Because anything that ever came up at the trial, which was, there are written records of the trial, that never came up. Abby was never portrayed as this, loving, caring, protective person who would try to. I mean, she was always portrayed as this, just hateful. And I mean, like I said, she didn't even take the time to learn Bridget's name.
Right.
Rather than take the time to learn her name, she's just going to keep calling her Maggie because she's used to calling the maid Maggie. Does that sound like a person who would attempt to protect someone?
Yeah.
No, she didn't give a shit. So that is a theory that I have never heard.
Yeah, it's just and it didn't seem like, I don't know. I mean, I guess yes, 1892. It is kind of important to make sure that you could pass things on to a son, but it really at that time it was becoming more accepted. For example, if Lizzie had married, the husband I guess would have had control over the money.
I mean, we're right in the middle of the suffragist movement.
Yeah.
Which was another it was a huge thing that was going on simultaneously with the Lizzie Borden trial. It's part of the reason that Lizzie Borden had so many sympathizers. I mean, it was this perfect storm of events that was going on at the time. So yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think women were beginning to come into their own at this point. Now, of course, Andrew is very old-fashioned.
Right.
But
does that even make sense too? That he would rape the maid to have her baby? And what would they do? Would they pull the old bait and switch of the pretend? Like I guess they would do back then, where somebody would adopt an illegitimate child.
I don't even. That was the most ridiculous thing because when he said, "I squirted in you, now you're carrying my child."
Yes.
What?
Yeah.
Who would say that?
Well, Busey would, but who knows if he ad-libbed that,
Andrew Borden wouldn't.
No, he was a Puritan. He doesn't.
Squirted in you.
Yeah.
Good God.
That wasn't how he talked. Oh. Well, I guess we have somehow we managed to get an hour's worth out of that movie that. I don't know if it deserved it, but
well, hopefully people will hear it and not waste their time watching it. Good, because it's just it's not fun bad. It's just bad.
Yeah, I mean,
and I hate that. I know it's difficult to make a film. I know that a lot of work goes into it, and that when you finally get to the point where your vision is realized on screen, it's a really big deal to you. So I really don't like trashing filmmakers. Except when I feel like they didn't care.
Right.
And that's exactly how this comes off.
Yeah.
Because I feel like if they cared at all, what we would have gotten would have been better.
Even a little bit, even slightly. Even if it felt like it was just a little bit more than it was just like, I don't know, whatever this was, just like ripping Lizzie Borden's story and trying to make another Lizzie Borden type movie. It felt almost Asylum-ish,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, I guess we'll put that one to bed. Jamie and I are both giving that one a no. Two thumbs down.
No.
Yeah.
Big
yeah.
no.
Yep, it was as failtastic as we're going to probably see on watching films here for the
Yeah,
the
I said
podcast.
last night. I was like, I am so pissed at Netflix right now for carrying this movie.
Yeah. Oh.
Um, what it's like, and I mean, clearly they don't care. I mean, it's not like we're only going to carry quality, but they don't care.
Right.
But I'm like, God, what are you doing, putting this out there so people can watch it? Stop.
Oh, I know. Oh. Well, let's get on to some brighter news here, Jamie. You were just talking about all the podcasts that you've been on a kind of a podcast marathon today. So, what have you got coming up for us?
Coming up, we have finally recorded the part 7 episode of Devour the Podcast for Friday the 13th. So
Oh.
that will be coming out, and that was fun. We paired that with a discussion of Shivers, the David Cronenberg film, also known as It Came From Within, and that one will be coming out soon. And then also on February 1st, the Skeleton Crew episode Horror 101 will be coming out, which was a really fun discussion where we just basically took horror from the beginning, discussed all the trends from the beginning to now, and it just, like I said, just sort of lightly hitting on everything and following it through the time period. It was just a really fun discussion.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. So when was that one going to be?
February 1st. And,
February 1st.
And you can find that at horrorphilia.com. And it's the Skeleton Crew. And if you're a horror fan, just check it out. And I think it's just a fun time. We didn't attempt to we're not trying to be scholars and teach anyone anything, because we assume that our listeners, know this stuff already. We're just
Right.
talking about it, So you could easily write a book about every different time period within horror if you wanted to. That's not what we were attempting to do. We're just talking about it. So it's just a good time. So I recommend checking that out. And then, of course, the Devour. Evil episodes, I think we do have an episode of that out now. And oh, shoot. It just came out and I can't remember what the heck. I always do that. I can't remember what we talked about. But that one is always fun. Of course, we talk about horror on television mainly with that show, but lately we've been doing movie reviews as well. So just check out. You can also find that at Horrorphilia. Just look for Evil episodes, and that's Brian, who you hear us talk about on this show all the time. Brian is actually on that show.
Nice.
And speaking of Brian, I just, on a personal note, I just want to get this out there. I'm so proud of him right now. Well, I'm always proud of him, but yesterday I found out that his anthology, an anthology that he edited for April Moon Books called Dark Rites of Cthulhu. It's an anthology of black magic Cthulhu stories, which is really good, and but it is on the short list of nominations for a Bram Stoker Award this year.
Whoa.
And I'm just really proud of him. Now, it's not he's not necessarily expecting to make it, because you know how those things go, but just the fact that it's getting that kind of recognition, I'm just bursting with pride, and it's fully deserved.
Yeah.
Because it's an excellent book. So check out that book. Obviously the Horror Writers Association thinks it's good enough to give it a mention. So if you like mythos stories, if you're into Cthulhu or H.P. Lovecraft, or if you just like black magic, check them out, because it's each one of those stories is a beautiful blend of both of those things, and it's an excellent read from beginning to end. Also, it was dedicated to me. I have a dedication in the front of that book, which I'm also really proud of.
Nice.
So that's a big thing that's happening right now, and I'm super excited.
Excellent. Well, congratulations, Brian. And now, if people want that, if they just type in Brian Sammons with 2 M's at Amazon, will his book pop up?
Yeah, actually, that should pop up. Or you can type in Dark Rites of Cthulhu, or you can actually go to April Moon Books, and you should be able to find it there. But there's another one, and it's just been a big time right now. In the December issue of Rue Morgue, he was in an anthology that was edited by Glenn Barris, who is from the UK, called In the Court of the Yellow King, which is stories based on I'm so embarrassed. I'm dropping his name right now, but his stories came to light, and everyone was suddenly interested in the Yellow King because of True Detective. the King in Yellow specifically, but Robert Chambers is the author's name originally. But so these are stories based on, or in the style of his work. Anyway, it's called In the Court of Yellow King, and it was reviewed positively in Rue Morgue magazine in the December issue, and Brian was one of 2 authors that were mentioned in that review.
Ooh.
And there was a nice little blurb about his story in that review in Rue Morgue. So I'm just, anyway, I mean, I don't mean to go on and on and on about that, but I'm just really proud of him right now, and I wanted to say that publicly.
No, I think that's really cool. And again, yeah, definitely. So we April Moon books. That's easy for me to remember because I was born on April Fool's Day. But yeah, Dark Rites of Cthulhu, and then you said In the Court of the Yellow King.
Yes.
Yeah, so 2 definite ones to check out. I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
Perfect. I guess for me right now, I got another blog post up. So this whole New Year's resolution of getting weekly blog posts up, written ones, we're doing so far so good. I just did the Frozen Ground. I'm hoping to maybe get Machete up on Monday. Now, I can't promise anything for the Monday of the 2nd, just because if the Patriots lose on that Sunday, then for sure I'm going to be doing a blog post, and I probably will be doing a lot of them because I won't be listening to any sports radio or anything like that because I'll have to just get away from it all. But if the Patriots win, I don't know. I'm going to do my best to get up early that morning. But with the whole Deflategate thing, of course, right now, I don't know if you've heard about that, where they supposedly they deflated some of the balls when they won the other game. So it's always exciting with the Patriots when it comes to whatever kind of cheating machinations they've worked up somehow. But
No, I had not heard of that.
yeah, so
Clever title.
Yes, Deflategate. Well, everything with Bill Belichick, the coach, has a gate where attached to it. But long story short, when they 11 of the 12 balls that the Patriots supply, which the offense, they have their own balls to use on offense, each team, and they're inspected by the refs ahead of time. And I guess between when the refs inspected them and they used them, 11 of the 12 were deflated too much. Yeah, so what that does, that allows Tom Brady better grip. But the thing was, they won by 38 points. So for me, as a Patriots fan, I'm like, what? Why do you need to keep trying to cheat like that? Like, why can't you just play? You're a better team. Why do you need to be videotaping things? Why? As a fan of the Patriots, I hate to have to try to. I can't really defend them. And living here in Philadelphia, the last Super Bowl win the Patriots had was against Philadelphia. So you can't even say you're a Patriots fan here in Philadelphia because people will be like, "Oh, your team cheated. They stole our Super Bowl from us." And so for me, I'm like, come on, just let me just root for my team without having to be like taking a shower afterwards. Now, of course, the average Patriots fan doesn't care about that. Like, they're all just jealous out there. They don't know any better.
Well,
the haters.
Feel sorry for me. I'm going to have to become a Lions fan now, and I don't know.
I know. But the Red Wings, you got the Red Wings, if you like hockey. But yeah, for football.
I do like hockey. I do.
Yeah. I mean, football, you had it kind of tough because Atlanta has had its tough times too. I mean, Georgia Bulldogs, but they haven't done it recently. But I think that's probably the one. Get them going in the Southeastern Conference and really make it happen.
Yeah, and we had a good run for a while, and then we had like a shitty run for a while, and then it's just you never know what's going to happen with them. We frequently have really good players,
Yes.
and I think Mark Richt he knows what he's doing. I just don't know what happens sometimes with that team. And as far as I am excited to have a real hockey team up here because we had a hockey team in Atlanta,
right.
But really, I mean,
yeah, I never got that because
I may as well have a hockey team in the Bahamas. What is that about?
Yeah, I was gonna say I didn't get that because
like the Jamaican bobsledders. That makes no sense.
Yeah, you tried it once and you moved them to Calgary, right? You tried it with the Flames, moved to Calgary, and then you're gonna try it again. It didn't make any sense.
No,
but,
and I went to a couple of the games. I love going to hockey games because it's like a concert. I mean, it's just super fun to go to a hockey game. So I was really thrilled to have them in Atlanta because I like going to the games, but it really just doesn't work. I mean, for the South just isn't the place for hockey.
Yeah,
you just don't have the fan base there.
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, I mean, Calgary is like a third of the size of Atlanta, and I mean they sell out every night. So it's just you have to have the market, you have to have the fans there.
Mm-hmm. And it makes total sense that it doesn't work. I don't know why they kept trying to force it. But.
I know. There's still 2 teams in Florida. It's just oh man. Well, I guess we're kind of getting off the rails here. We've just suddenly gone into a sports show here, which we could do an extra sports hour here from if we wanted to on the Mixler or the second unit podcast here on Mixler, because we seem to have a whole open night here to do these.
Yeah, I was going to say it's not like we're going to get in anybody's way.
I know. But no, might as well we'll wrap it up here. We'll call it good here. But so I guess we'll be back next week. We'll have something in store for you that is hopefully a lot better than Lizzie.
Yeah, I think if I videotaped my dental exam, it would be a lot better than this.
It'd be better than Lizzie. It would at least seem more realistic, more natural.
Right?
Yes. All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening, and we'll see you again next week.
Bye, everyone.
You may know him as John Cross from the podcast From the After Movie Diner, or you may not know him at all. But now you can know him as Miscellaneous Plumbing Fixtures with the release of his new album, Catch Up or Don't, See If I Care. Available now on Bandcamp, iTunes, Amazon, SoundCloud, Google Play, Spotify, and wherever music is found. A full 16 new folk, blues, and rock tracks from this bearded singer-songwriter. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and at aftermoviediner.com. For links to the album and to learn more, go to miskplumbingfixtures.blogspot.com or miskplumbingfixtures.bandcamp.com.
Mary redeemed a $50,000 cash prize playing Chumba Casino this year.
I was only playing for fun, so winning this was a dream come true.
Chumba Casino is America's #1 social casino experience. It's serious fun. With over 80 casino-style games to choose from, you too could win life-changing amounts of cash. Be like Mary. Log on to ChumbaCasino.com and give them a whirl. That's ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void or prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details. The voice in the preceding commercial was not the actual voice of a winner.